Republicans are successful in shoving through this ridiculous, harmful reconciliation bill. Today, we are going to be reading in full the nearly 1,000 pages of the bill text. This is legislation that cuts Medicaid, cuts SNAP, defunds Planned Parenthood, and increases the deficit. That's right, it's not even fiscally responsible, as our colleagues across the aisle claim to care so deeply about. New estimates from the Joint Economic Committee find that 365,000 Arizonans would lose their health insurance if Trump's bill passes. People will literally die if Republicans pass this bill. And the worst part of it is that they know exactly what they're doing. One of the most bipartisan Republican senators, Senator Thom Tillis, is literally announcing his retirement, so he is not beholden to his party to vote for this monstrosity. All we need is a few more Republicans like Mr. Tillis to stand up and say enough is enough. I want to thank everyone who is here today who will be joining us to read a part of this bill. As the youngest woman in Congress, I know that it's my generation that will suffer the most because of this legislation. It's why I've invited so many young people here today to stand in support and read from this bill. I also want to say that we are currently reading the most up-to-date text of the bill available to members and to the general public at 940 pages. We expect that this will take about 16 hours. This is not even the final bill text because Republicans have been legislating in the dead of night. Thank you to the Senate Democrats who have been fighting relentlessly for now almost 24 hours, maybe more than 24 hours, to fight back for the American people. Again, anything could happen here, and we need to keep the pressure on. I would love to swap out what we have for the updated text, and if that comes at any point today, we will do so. I invite any of my Republican colleagues, House or Senate, to join me in reading a passage today. People's lives are on the line. Thank you again for joining us. I know it's hot. We're expecting so many wonderful speakers today from so many of my colleagues across the country to the National Women's Law Center, Indivisible, and even local high schoolers. We are a vast coalition standing together in opposition. So with that, I'm going to start with the table of contents, and then after that, we'll hand over to our first speaker, who is Maria Town of the American Association of People with Disabilities. H.R. 1, to provide for reconciliation pursuant to Title 2 of H.Con. Resolution 14, Amendment 1, amendment in the nature of a substitute intended to be proposed by Mr. Graham to the committee amendment, viz. Strike all after the enacting clause and insert the following. Section 1, short title. This act may be cited as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Section 2, table of contents. The table of contents of this act is as follows. Section 10-103, availability of standard utility allowances based on receipt of energy assistance. Section 10-104, restrictions on internet expenses. Section 10-105, matching funds requirements. Section 10-106, administrative cost sharing. Section 10-107, National Education and Obesity Prevention Grant Program. Section 10-108, Alien SNAP eligibility. Section 10-201, rescission of amounts for forestry. Subtitle C, commodities. Section 10-301, effective reference price. Section 10-302, base acres. Section 10-303, producer election. Section 10-304, price loss coverage. Section 10-305, agriculture risk coverage. Section 10-306, equitable treatment of certain entities. Section 10-307, payment limitations. Section 10-308, adjusted gross income limitation. Section 10-309, marketing loans. Section 10-310, repayment of marketing loans. Section 10-311, economic adjustment assistance for textile mills. Section 10-312, sugar program updates. Section 10-313, dairy policy updates. Section 10-314, implementation. Subtitle D, Disaster Assistance Program. Section 10-401, Supplemental Agricultural Disaster Assistance. Subtitle E, Crop Insurance. Section 10-501, Beginning Farmer and Rancher Benefit. Section 10-502, Area-Based Crop Insurance Coverage and Affordability. Section 10503, Administrative and Operating Expense Adjustments. Section 10504, Premium Support. Section 10505, Program Compliance and Integrity. Section 10506, Reviews Compliance and Integrity. Section 10507, Poultry Insurance Pilot Program. Subtitle F, Additional Investments in Rural America. Section 10601, Conservation. Section 10602, Supplemental Agricultural Trade Promotion Program. Section 10603, Nutrition. Section 10604, Research. Section 10605, Energy. Section 10606, Horticulture. Section 10607, Miscellaneous. Title II, Committee on Armed Services. Section 20001, Enhancement of Department of Defense Resources for Improving the Quality of Life for Military Personnel. Section 20002, Enhancement of Department of Defense Resources for Shipbuilding. Section 20003, Enhancement of Department of Defense Resources for Integrated Air and Missile Defense. Section 20004, Enhancement of Department of Defense Resources for Munitions and Defense Supply Chain Resiliency. Section 20005, Enhancement of Department of Defense Resources for Sealing Low-Cost Weapons into Production. Section 20006, Enhancement of Department of Defense Resources for Improving the Efficiency and Cybersecurity of the Department of Defense. Section 20007, Enhancement of Department of Defense Resources for Air Superiority. Section 20008, Enhancement of Resources for Nuclear Forces. Section 20009, Enhancement of Department of Defense Resources to Improve Capabilities of United States Indo-Pacific Command. Section 20010, Enhancement of Department of Defense Resources for Improving the Readiness of the Department of Defense. Section 20011, Improving Department of Defense Border Support and Counter-Drug Missions. Section 20012, Department of Defense Oversight. Section 20013, Military Construction Projects Authorized. Section 20014, Multi-Year Operational Plan. Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. Section 30001, Funding Cap for the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection. Section 30002, Rescission of Funds for Green and Resilient Retrofit Program for Multifamily Housing. Section 30003, Securities and Exchange Commission Reserve Fund. Section 30004, Appropriations for Defense Production Act. Committee of Commerce, Science, and Transportation. Section 40001, Coast Guard Mission Readiness. Section 40002, Spectrum Auctions. Section 40003, Air Traffic Control Improvements. Section 4004, Space Launch and Re-Entry Licensing and Permitting User Fees. Section 40005, Mars Missions, Artemis Missions, and Moon to Mars Program. Section 40006, Corporate Average Fuel Economy Civil Penalties. Section 40007, Payments for Lease of Metropolitan Washington Airports. Section 40008, Rescission of Certain Amounts for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Section 40009, Reduction in Annual Transfers to Travel Promotion Fund. Section 40010, Treatment of Unobligated Funds for Alternative Fuel and Low-Emission Aviation Technology. Section 40011, Rescission of Amounts Appropriated to Public Wireless Supply Chain Innovation Fund. Section 40012, Support for Artificial Intelligence under the Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment Program. Committee on Energy and Natural Resources. Section 50101, Onshore Oil and Gas Leasing. Section 50102, Offshore Oil and Gas Leasing. Section 50103, Royalties on Extracted Methane. Section 50104, Alaska Oil and Gas Leasing. Section 50105, National Petroleum Reserve Alaska. Subtitle B, Mining. Section 50201, Coal Leasing. Section 50202, Coal Royalty. Section 50203, Leases for Known Recoverable Coal Resources. Section 50204, Authorization to Mine Federal Coal. Subtitle C, Lands. Section 50301, Mandatory Disposal of Bureau of Land Management Land for Housing. Section 50303, Timber Sales and Long-Term Contracting for the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management. Section 50303, Renewable Energy Fees on Federal Land. Section 50304, renewable energy revenue sharing. Section 50305, rescission of National Park Service and Bureau of Land Management funds. Section 50306, celebrating America's 250th anniversary. Subtitle D, energy. Section 50401, Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Section 50402, repeals rescissions. Section 50403, Energy Dominance Financing. Section 50404, Transformational Artificial Intelligence Models. Subtitle E, water. Section 50501, Water Conveyance and Surface Water Storage Enhancement. Committee on Environment and Public Works. Section 60001, rescission of funding for clean, heavy-duty vehicles. Section 60002, repeal of Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Section 60003, rescission of funding for diesel emissions reductions. Section 60004, rescission of funding to address air pollution. Section 60005, rescission of funding to address air pollution at schools. Section 60006, rescission of funding for the Low Emission Electricity Program. Section 60007, rescission of funding for Section 211 of the Clean Air Act. Section 60008, rescission of funding for implementation of the American Innovation and Manufacturing Act. Section 60009, rescission of funding for enforcement technology and public information. Section 60010, rescission of funding for greenhouse gas corporate reporting. Section 60011, rescission of funding for environmental product declaration assistance. Section 60012, rescission of funding for methane emissions and waste reduction incentive program for petroleum and natural gas systems. Section 60013, rescission of funding for greenhouse gas air pollution plans and implementation grants. Section 60014, rescission of funding for Environmental Protection Agency efficient, accurate, and timely reviews. Section 60015, rescission of funding for low embodied carbon labeling for construction materials. Section 60016, rescission of funding for environmental and climate justice block grants. Section 60017, rescission of funding for ESA recovery plans. Section 60018, rescission of funding for environmental and climate data collection. Section 60019, rescission of neighborhood access and equity grant program. Section 60020, rescission of funding for federal building assistance. Section 60021, rescission of funding for low carbon materials for federal buildings. Section 60022, rescission of funding for GSA emerging and sustainable technologies. Section 60023, rescission of Environmental Review Implementation Fund. Section 60024, rescission of low carbon transportation material grants. Section 60025, John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. Section 60026, project sponsor opt-in fees for environmental review. Finance. Subtitle A, tax. Section 70001, references to the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, etc. Chapter 1, providing permanent tax relief for middle-class families and workers. Section 70101, extension and enhancement of reduced rates. Section 70102, extension and enhancement of increased standard deduction. Section 70103, termination of deduction for personal exemptions other than temporary senior deduction. Section 70104, extension and enhancement of increased child tax credit. Section 70105, extension and enhancement of deduction for qualified business income. Section 70106, extension and enhancement of increased estate and gift tax exemption amounts. Section 70107, extension of increased alternative minimum tax exemption amounts and modification of phase-out thresholds. Section 70108, extension and modification of limitation on deduction for qualified residence interest. Section 70109, extension and modification of limitation on casualty loss deduction. Section 70110, termination of miscellaneous itemized deductions other than educator expenses. Section 7111, limitation on tax benefit of itemized deductions. Section 7112, extension and modified qualification transportation fringe benefits. Section 7113, extension and modification of limitation on deduction and exclusion for moving expensive. Section 7114, extension and modification of limitation on wagering losses. Section 7115, extension and enhancement of increased limitation on contributions to ABLE accounts. Section 7116, extension and enhancement of savers credit allowed for ABLE contributions. Section 7117, extension of rollovers from qualified tuition programs to able accounts permitted. Section 7118, extension of treatment of certain individuals performing services in the Sinai Peninsula and enhancement to include additional areas. Section 7119, extension and modification of exclusion from gross income of student loans discharged on account of death or disability. Section 7120, limitation on individual deductions for certain local and state taxes, etc. Chapter 2, delivering on presidential priorities to provide new middle-class tax relief. Section 7201, no tax on tips. Section 7202, no tax on overtime. Section 7203, no tax on car loan interest. Section 7204, Trump accounts and contribution pilot program. Chapter 3, establishing certainty and competitiveness for American job creators. Subchapter A, permanent U.S. business tax reform and boosting domestic investment. Section 7301, full expensing for certain business property. Section 7302, full expensing of domestic research and experimental expenditures. Section 7303, modification of limitation on business interest. Section 7304, extension and enhancement of paid family and medical leave credit. Section 7305, exceptions from limitations on deduction for business meals. Section 7306, increased dollar limitations for expensing of certain depreciable business assets. Section 7307, special depreciation allowance for qualified production property. Section 7308, enhancement of advanced manufacturing investment credit. Section 7309, spaceports are treated like airports under exempt facility bond rules. Subchapter B, permanent America First international tax reforms. Part 1, foreign tax credit. Section 7311, modifications related to foreign tax credit limitation. Section 7312, modifications to determination of deemed paid credit for taxes properly attributed to tested income. Section 7313, sourcing certain income from the sale of inventory produced in the United States. Part 2, foreign derived deduction eligible income and net CFC tested income. Section 7321, modification of deduction for foreign derived deduction eligible income and net CFC tested income. Section 7322, determination of deduction eligible income. Section 7323, rules related to deemed intangible income. Part 3, base erosion minimum tax. Section 7331, extension and modification of base erosion minimum tax amount. Business interest limitation. Section 341, coordination of business interest limitation with interest capitalization provisions. Section 7342, definition of adjusted taxable income for business interest limitation. Other international tax reforms. Section 7351, permanent extension of look-through for related controlled foreign corporations. Section 7352, repeal of election for 1 month deferral and determination of taxable year of specified foreign corporations. Section 7353, restoration of limitation on downward attribution of stock ownership and applying constructive ownership rules. Section 70354, modifications to pro rata share rule. Chapter 4, investing in American families, communities, and small businesses. Subchapter A, permanent investments in families and children. Section 7401, enhancement of employer-provided child care credit. Section 7402, enhancement of adoption credit. Section 7403, recognizing Indian tribal governments for purposes of determining whether a child has special needs for purposes of the adoption credit. Section 404, enhancement of the Dependent Care Assistance Program. Section 7405, enhancement of Child Independent Care Tax Credit. Subchapter B, permanent investments in students and reforms to tax-exempt institutions. Section 7411, tax credit for contributions of individuals to scholarship granting organizations. Section 7412, exclusion for employer payment of student loans. Section 7413, additional expenses treated as qualified higher education expenses for purposes of 529 accounts. Section 7414, certain post-secondary credentialing expenses treated as qualified higher education expenses for purposes of 529 accounts. Section 7415, modification of excise tax on investment income of certain private colleges and universities. Section 7416, expanding application of tax on excess compensation within tax-exempt organizations. Subchapter C, permanent investments in community development. Section 7421, permanent renewal and enhancement of opportunity zones. Section 7422, permanent enhancement of low-income housing tax credit. Section 7423, permanent extension of new markets tax credit. Section 7424, permanent and expanded reinstatement of partial deduction for charitable contributions of individuals who do not elect to itemize. Section 7425, 0.5% floor on deduction of contributions made by individuals. Section 7426, 1% floor on deduction of charitable contributions made by corporations. And Section 7427, permanent increase in limitation on cover over tax on distilled spirits. Section 7428, nonprofit community development activities in remote native villages. Section 7429, adjustment of charitable deduction for certain expenses incurred in support of Native Alaskan subsistence whaling. Section 7430, exception of percentage of completion method of accounting for certain residential construction contracts. Subchapter D, permanent investment in small business in rural America. Section 7431, expansion of qualified small business stock gain exclusion. Section 7432, repeal of revision to de minimis rules for third-party network transactions. Section 7433, increase in threshold for requiring information reporting with respect to certain payees. Section 7434, treatment of certain qualified sound recording productions. Section 7435, exclusion of interest and loans secured by rural and agricultural real property. Section 436, reduction of transfer and manufacturing taxes for certain devices. Section 7437, treatment of capital gains from the sale of certain farmland property. Section 70438, extension of rules for treatment of certain disaster-related personal casualty losses. Chapter 5, ending Green New Deal spending, promoting America First energy and other reforms. Subchapter A, termination of Green New Deal subsidies. Section 7501, termination of previously owned clean energy vehicle credit. Section 7502, termination of clean vehicle credit. Section 7503, termination of qualified commercial clean vehicles credit. Section 7504, termination of alternative fuel vehicle refueling property credit. Section 7505, termination of energy efficient home improvement credit. Section 7506, termination of residential clean energy credit. Section 7507, termination of energy efficient commercial buildings deduction. Section 7508, termination of new energy efficient home credit. Section 7509, termination of cost recovery for energy property and qualified clean energy facilities, property, and technology. Section 7510, modifications of zero emission nuclear power production credit. Section 7511, termination of clean hydrogen production credit. Section 7512, termination and restrictions on clean electricity production credit. Section 7513, termination and restrictions on clean electricity investment credit. Section 7514, phase out and restrictions on advanced manufacturing production credit. Section 7515, restrictions on the extension of advanced energy project credit program. Subchapter B, enhancement of America First energy policy. Section 7521, extension and modification of clean fuel production credit. Section 7522, restrictions on carbon oxide sequestration credit. Section 7523, intangible drilling and development costs taken into account for purposes of computing adjusted financial statement income. Section 7524, income from hydrogen storage, carbon capture, advanced nuclear, hydropower, and geothermal energy added to qualifying income of certain publicly traded partnerships. Section 7525, allow for payments to certain individuals who die fuel. Subchapter C, other reforms. Section 7531, modifications to de minimis entry privilege for commercial shipments. Chapter 6, enhancing deduction and income tax credit guardrails and other reforms. Section 7601, modification and extension of limitation on excess business losses of non-corporate taxpayers. Section 7602, treatment of payments from partnerships to partners for property or services. Section 7603, excessive employee remuneration from controlled group members and allocation of deduction. Section 7604, third-party litigation funding reform. Section 7605, excise tax on certain remittance transfers. Section 7606, enforcement provisions with respect to COVID-related employee retention credits. Section 7607, Social Security member requirement for American Opportunity and Lifetime Learning credits. Section 70608, Task Force on the Replacement of Direct File. Subtitle B, Health, Chapter 1, Medicaid. Subchapter A, Reducing Fraud and Improving Enrollment Processes. Section 71101, Moratorium on Implementation of Rule relating to Eligibility and Enrollment in Medicare Savings Program. Section 711-102, Moratorium on Implementation of Rules relating to Eligibility and Enrollment for Medicaid, CHIP, and the Basic Health Program. Section 711-03, Reducing Duplicate Enrollment under the Medicaid and CHIP programs. Section 711-04, Ensuring deceased individuals do not remain enrolled. Section 711-05, Ensuring deceased providers do not remain enrolled. Section 711-06, Payment reduction related to certain erroneous excess payments under Medicaid. Section 711-07, Eligibility redeterminations. Section 711-08, Revising home equity limit for determining eligibility for long-term care services under the Medicaid program. Section 711-09, Alien Medicaid eligibility. Section 711-10, Expansion of FMAP for certain states providing payments for health care furnished to certain individuals. Section 711-11, Expansion FMAP for emergency Medicaid. Subchapter B, Preventing Wasteful Spending. Section 711-12, Moratorium on Implementation of Rule relating to staffing standards for long-term care facilities under the Medicare and Medicaid programs. Section 711-13, Reducing state Medicaid costs. Section 711-14, Prohibiting federal Medicaid and CHIP funding for certain items and services. Section 711-15, Federal payments to prohibited entities. Subchapter C, Stopping abusive financial practices. Section 711-16, Sunsetting Increased FMAP Incentive. Section 711-17, Provider Taxes. Section 711-18, State-Directed Payments. Section 711-19, Requirements regarding waiver of uniform tax requirements for Medicaid provider tax. Section 711-20, Requiring budget neutrality for Medicaid demonstration projects under Section 115. Subchapter D, Increasing personal accountability. Section 711-21, Requirement for states to establish Medicaid community engagement requirements for certain individuals. Section 711-22, Modifying cost-sharing requirements for certain expansion individuals under the Medicaid program. Subchapter E, Expanding access to care. Section 711-23, Making certain adjustments to coverage of home or community-based services under Medicaid. Section 711-24, Determination of FMAP for high poverty states. Chapter 2, Medicare. Subchapter A, Strengthening eligibility requirements. Section 71-201, Limiting Medicare coverage of certain individuals. Subchapter B, Improving services for seniors. Section 71-202, Temporary payment increase under the Medicare physician fee schedule to account for exceptional circumstances. Section 71-203, Expanding and clarifying the exclusion for orphan drugs under the Drug Price Negotiation Program. Section 71-204, Application of cost of living adjustment to non-labor related portion for hospital outpatient department services furnished in Alaska and Hawaii. Chapter 3, Health Tax. Chapter A, Improving eligibility criteria. Section 71-301, Permitting premium tax credit only for certain individuals. Section 71-302, Disallowing premium tax credit during periods of Medicaid ineligibility due to alien status. Subchapter B, Preventing waste, fraud, and abuse. Section 71-303, Requiring verification of eligibility for premium tax credit. Section 71-304, Disallowing premium tax credit in case of certain coverage enrolled in during special enrollment period. Section 71-305, Eliminating limitation on recapture of advance payment of premium tax credit. Subchapter C, Enhancing choice for patients. Section 71-306, Permanent extension of safe harbor for absence of deductible for telehealth services. Section 71-307, Allowance of bronze and catastrophic plans in connection with health savings accounts. Section 71-308, Treatment of direct primary care service arrangements. Chapter 4, Protecting rural hospitals and providers. Section 71-401, Rural Health Transformation Program. Subtitle C, Increase in debt limit. Section 72-001, Modification of limitation on the public debt. Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pension. Subtitle A, Exemption of Certain Assets. Section 80001, Exemption of Certain Assets. Subtitle B, Loan Limits. Section 81001, Establishment of Loan Limits for Graduate and Professional Students and Parent Borrowers. Termination of Graduate and Professional Plus Loans. Subtitle C, Loan Repayment. Section 82001, Loan Repayment. Section 82002, Deferment, Forbearance. Section 82003, Loan Rehabilitation. Section 82004, Public Service Loan Forgiveness. Section 82005, Student Loan Servicing. Subtitle D, Pell Grants. Section 83001, Eligibility. Section 83002, Workforce Pell Grants. Section 83000E, Pell Shortfall. Section 83004, Federal Pell Grant Exclusion relating to other grant aid. Subtitle E, Accountability. Section 84001, Ineligibility based on low earning outcomes. Subtitle F, Regulatory Relief. Section 85001, Delay of Rule relating to borrower defense to repayment. Section 85002, Delay of Rule relating to closed school discharges. Subtitle G, Limitation on Authority. Section 86001, Limitation on proposing or issuing regulations and executive actions. Subtitle H, Garden of Heroes. Section 87001, Garden of Heroes. Subtitle 1, Office of Refugee Resettlement. Section 88001, Potential Sponsor Vetting for Unaccompanied Alien Children Appropriation. Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs. Subtitle A, Homeland Security Provisions. Section 90001, Border Infrastructure and Wall System. Section 90002, U.S. Customs and Border Protection Personnel, Fleet Vehicles, and Facilities. Section 90003, Detention Capacity. Section 90004, Border Security, Technology, and Screening. Section 90005, State and Local Assistance. Section 90006, Presidential Residence Protection. Section 90007, Department of Homeland Security Appropriations for Border Support. Subtitle B, Governmental Affairs Provisions. Section 90101, FE11B Improvements. Section 90102, Pandemic Response Accountability Committee. Section 90103, Appropriation for the Office of Management and Budget. Committee on the Judiciary. Subtitle A, Immigration and Law Enforcement Matters. Part 1, Immigration Fees. Section 10001, Applicability of the Immigration Laws. Section 10002, Asylum Fees. Section 10003, Employment Authorization Document Fees. Section 10004, Immigration Parole Fee. Section 10005, Special Immigrant Juvenile Fee. Section 10006, Temporary Protected Status Fee. Section 10007, Visa Integrity Fee. Section 10008, Form I-94 Fee. Section 10009, Annual Asylum Fee. Section 10010, Fee relating to renewal and extension of employment authorization for parolees. Section 10011, Fee relating to renewal or extension of employment authorization for asylum applicants. Section 10012, Fee relating to renewal and extension of employment authorization for aliens granted temporary protected status. Section 10013, Fees related to applications for adjustment of status. Section 10014, Electronic System for Travel Authorization Fee. Section 10015, Electronic Visa Update System Fee. Section 10016, Fee for aliens ordered removed in absentia. Section 10017, Inadmissible Alien Apprehension Fee. Section 10018, Amendment to Authorize Authority to Apply for Asylum. Part 2, Immigration and Law Enforcement Funding. Section 10051, Appropriation for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Section 10052, Appropriations for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Section 10053, Appropriation for Federal Law Enforcement Training Centers. Section 10054, Appropriation for the Department of Justice. Section 10055, Bridging Immigration-Related Deficits Experience Nationwide Reimbursement Fund. Section 10056, Appropriations for the Bureau of Prisons. Section 10057, Appropriation for the United States Secret Service. Subtitle B, Judiciary Matters. Section 101, Appropriations to the Administrative Office of the United States Courts. Section 101 102, Appropriations to the Federal Judicial Review. Subtitle C, Radiation Exposure Compensation Matters. Section 100-201, Extension of Fund. Section 100-202, Claims relating to atmospheric testing. Section 100-203, Claims relating to uranium mining. And Section 100-205, Limitations on Claims. All right, with that, I will hand it over to Maria.
Congresswoman. My name is Maria Town, and I'm the President and CEO of the American Association of People with Disabilities. Title I, Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry. Subtitle A, Nutrition. Section 10101, Reevaluation of Thrifty Food Plan. In general, Section 3 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking subsection U and inserting the following. Thrifty Food Plan. In general, the term Thrifty Food Plan means the direct required to feed a family of 4 persons consisting of a man and a woman, ages 20 through 50, a child ages 6 through 8, and a child ages 9 through 11, using the items and quantities of food described in the report of the Department of Agriculture entitled Thrifty Food Plan 2021, and each successor report updated pursuant to the subsection, subject to the conditions that A, the relevant market baskets of the Thrifty Food Plan shall only be changed pursuant to the paragraph. 4, B, the cost of the Thrifty Food Plan shall be the basis for uniform allotments of all households regardless of the actual composition of the household. And C, the cost of the Thrifty Food Plan may only be adjusted in accordance with this subsection. 2, household adjustments. The Secretary shall make household adjustments using the following ratios of household size as a percentage of the maximum 4-person allotment. A 1-person household 30%, B, for a 2-person household 55%, C, for a 3-person household 79%, D, for a 4-person household 100%, E, for a 5-person household 109%. For a 6-person household 143%, G, for a 7-person household 158%, H, for an 8-person household 180%, I, for a household of 9 persons or more, an additional 22% per person, which additional percentage shall not total more than 200%. 3, allowable cost adjustments. The Secretary shall, A, make cost adjustments in the Thrifty Food Plan for Hawaii and the urban and rural parts of Alaska to reflect the cost of food in Hawaii and urban and rural Alaska. B, make cost adjustments in the separate Thrifty Food Plans for Guam and the Virgin Islands of the United States to reflect the cost of food in those states, but not to exceed the cost of food in the 50 states and the District of Columbia. And C, on October 1st, 2025, and on each October 1st thereafter, adjust the cost of the Thrifty Food Plan to reflect changes in the consumer price index for all urban consumers, published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics of the Department of Labor for the most recent 12-month period ending in June. 4, reevaluation of market baskets. A, reevaluation. Not earlier than October 1st, 2027, the Secretary may reevaluate the market baskets of the Thrifty Food Plan based on the current food prices, food composition data, consumption patterns, and dietary guidance. B, cost neutrality. The Secretary shall not increase the cost of the Thrifty Food Plan based on a reevaluation under this paragraph. Conforming amendments. Section 16C1A of the Food Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking Section 3U4 and inserting Section 3U3. Section 19A to I don't know what letter that is, II of the Food Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking Section 3U4 and inserting Section 3U3. Section 27A2 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking Section 3U4 each place it appears and inserting Section 3U3. Section 10102, modifications to SNAP work requirements for able-bodied adults. Exceptions. Section 60 of the Food Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking paragraph 3 and inserting the following. Exceptions. Paragraph 2 shall not apply to an individual if the individual is under 18, over 65 years of age, B, medically certified as physically or mentally unfit for employment, C, a parent or other member of a household with responsibility for a dependent child under 14 years of age, D, otherwise exempt under subsection D2, E, a pregnant woman, F, an Indian or an urban Indian, as such terms are defined in paragraphs 13 and 28 of Section 4 of the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act, or G, a Californian Indian described in Section 809A in the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act. B, standardizing enforcement. Section 604 of the Food Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended. 1, in subparagraph A by striking clause 2 and inserting the following. II is in non-contiguous state and has an unemployment rate that is at or above 1.5 times the national unemployment rate, 8%, and 2, by adding at the end the following. C, definition of non-contiguous state. I, in general, in this paragraph, the term non-contiguous state means a state that is not one of the 48 contiguous states or the District of Columbia. II. Exclusions. The term non-contiguous state does not include Guam or the U.S. Virgin Islands. C. Waiver for non-contiguous states. Section 60 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended, 1, by rescinding paragraph 7 as a paragraph 8, and 2, by inserting after paragraph 6 the following. 7. Exemptions for non-contiguous states. A, definition of non-contiguous state. I, in general, in this paragraph, the term non-contiguous state means a state that is not one of the 48 contiguous states or the District of Columbia. II, exclusions. In this paragraph, the term non-contiguous state does not include Guam or the Virgin Islands of the United States. Exemption. Subject to the subparagraph D, the Secretary may exempt individuals in a non-contiguous state from compliance with the requirements of paragraph 2 if the state agency submits to the Secretary a request for that exemption. Made in such form and at such time as the Secretary may require, and including the information described in subparagraph C, and the Secretary determines that, based on that request, the state agency is demonstrating a good faith effort to comply with the requirements of paragraph 2. C. Good faith effort determination. In determining whether a state agency is demonstrating a good faith effort for purposes of subparagraph B, II, the Secretary shall consider any actions taken by the state agency toward compliance with the requirements of paragraph 2, any significant barriers to challenges in meeting those requirements, including barriers or challenges related to funding, design, development, procurement, or installation of necessary systems or resources. III, the detailed plan and timeline of the state agency for achieving full compliance with those requirements, including any milestones as defined by the Secretary, and IV, any other criteria determined appropriate by the Secretary. D, duration of exemption. In general, an exemption granted under subparagraph B shall expire not later than December 31st, 2028, and may not be renewed beyond that date. Early termination. The Secretary may terminate an exemption granted under subparagraph B prior to the expiration date of that exemption if the Secretary determines that the state agency I has failed to comply with reporting requirements described in subparagraph E, or II, based on the information provided pursuant to subparagraph E, failed to make continued good faith efforts towards compliance with the requirements of this subsection. E. Reporting requirements. A state agency granted an exemption under subparagraph B shall submit to the Secretary quarterly progress reports on the status of the state agency in achieving milestones towards full compliance described in subparagraph C III, and information on specific risks, newly identified barriers or challenges to full compliance, including the plan of the state agency to mitigate those risks, barriers, or challenges. Section 10103. Availability of standard utility allowances based on the receipt of energy assistance. A. Standard utility allowance. Section 5E6 of the Food Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by inserting with an elderly or disabled member after households. B. Third-party energy assistance payments. Section 5K4 of the Food Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended 1. In subparagraph A by inserting, quote, without an elderly or disabled member before shall be, and in subparagraph 2B by inserting, quote, with an elderly or disabled member before under a state law. Section 10104, restrictions on internet expenses. Section 5E6 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by adding at the end the following. E. Restrictions on internet expenses. Any service fee associated with internet connection shall not be used in computing the excess shelter expense deduction under this paragraph. Section 10105, matching funds requirements. A. In general, Section 4A of the Food Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking A. Subject to and inserting the following. A. Program, establishment, subject to, by adding at the end the following. State quality control incentive. A. Definition of payment or error rate. In this paragraph, the term payment error rate has the meaning given to the term in section 16C2. B. State cost share. In general, beginning in the fiscal year 2028, if the payment error rate of a state is determined under Clause II is I. Less than 6%, the federal share of the cost of the allotment described in paragraph 1 for that state in a fiscal year shall be 100%, and the state shall be 0%. II. Equal to or greater than 6% but less than 8%, the federal share of that cost allotment described in paragraph 1 for that state in a fiscal year shall be 95%, and the state share shall be 5%. III. Equal to or greater than 8% but less than 10%, the federal share of the cost of the allotment described in paragraph 1 for that state in a fiscal year shall be 90%, and the state share shall be 10%. And IV. Equal to or greater than 10%, the federal share of the cost allotment described in paragraph 1 for that state in a fiscal year shall be 85%, and the state share shall be 15%. II. Elections. Fiscal year 2028. For fiscal year 2028, to calculate the applicable state share under Clause I, a state may elect to use the payment error rate of the state from fiscal year 2025 or 2026. II. Fiscal year 2029 and thereafter. For fiscal year 2029 and each fiscal year thereafter, to calculate the applicable state share under Clause I, the Secretary shall use the payment error rate of the state for the third fiscal year preceding the fiscal year for which the state share is being calculated. 3. Maximum federal payment. The Secretary may not pay towards the cost of an allotment described in paragraph 1 an amount that is greater than the applicable federal share under paragraph 2. Waiver authority. In general, the Secretary may waive the requirement under paragraph 2 for a non-contiguous state, excluding Guam and the Virgin Islands of the United States, for a period of not more than 2 years if the Secretary determines that the waiver is necessary and the non-contiguous state is actively implementing a corrective action plan as described in section 275.17 of Title VII Code of Federal Regulations or a successor regulation, and 2. Carrying out any other activities described necessary by the Secretary to reduce its payment error rate as described in paragraph 2. B. Termination of authority. The waiver authority under subparagraph A shall terminate on the date that is 4 years after the date of the enactment of this paragraph. Limitation on authority. Section 13A1 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended in the first sentence by inserting or the payment or disposition of estate share under Section 4A2 after, quote, 16C1D III. Section 10106, Administrative Cost Sharing. Section 16A of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended in the matter preceding paragraph 1 by striking, quote, agency amount equal to 50 percentium, and inserting, quote, agency through fiscal year 2026, 50%, and for fiscal year 2027 and each year thereafter, 25%. Section 10107, National Education and Obesity Prevention Grant Program. Section 28D1F of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking, quote, for fiscal year 2016 and each subsequent fiscal year, and inserting, quote, for each fiscal years 2016 through 2025, end quote. Section 10108, Alien SNAP Eligibility. Section 6F of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended to read as follows. No individual who is a member of a household otherwise eligible to participate in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program under this section shall be eligible to participate in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program as a member of that or any other household unless he or she is, 1, a resident of the United States, and 2, either a citizen or national of the United States, B, an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence as an immigrant as defined by sections 101A15 and 101A20 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, excluding, among others, alien visitors, tourists, diplomats, and students who enter the United States temporarily with no intention of abandoning their residence in a foreign country. C, an alien who has been granted the status of Cuban or Haitian entrant as defined in Section 501E of the Refugee Assistance Act of 1980, or an individual who lawfully resides in the United States in accordance with a compact of free association referred to in 402B2G of the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996. The income, less at state option at a pro rata share, and financial resources of the individual rendered ineligible to participate in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program under this subsection shall be considered in determining the eligibility and the value of the allotment of the household of which such an individual is a member. Subtitle B, Forestry. Section 10201, Rescission of Amounts for Forestry. The unobligated balances of amounts appropriated by the following provisions of Public Law 117 to 169 are rescinded. Paragraphs 3 and 4 of Section 23001A, paragraphs 1 through 4 of Section 23002A, Section 23003A2, Section 23005. Subtitle Commodities. Section 10301. Effective reference for price, reference price. Effective reference price. Section 11118BII of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended by striking 85 and inserting beginning with the crop year 2025, 88. Reference price. Section 111 of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended by striking paragraph 19 and inserting the following. 19. Reference price. In general, effective beginning with 2025 crop year, subject to subparagraphs B and C, the term reference price with respect to a covered commodity for a crop year means the following. I. For wheat, $6.35 per bushel. For corn, $4.10 per bushel. For grain, sorghum, $4.40 per bushel. For barley, $5.45 per bushel. For oats, $2.65 per bushel. For long grain rice, $16.90 per hundredweight. For medium grain rice, $16.90 per hundredweight. For soybeans, $10 per bushel. For other oil seeds, $23.75 per hundredweight. For peas, $4 per ton. Dry peas, $13.10 per hundredweight. For lentils, $23.75 per hundredweight. For small chickpeas, $22.65 per hundredweight. For large chickpeas, $25.65 per hundredweight. For seed cotton, 42 cents per pound. Effectiveness. Beginning in one crop year, the reference prices described in subparagraph A with respect to a covered commodity shall be equal the reference price in the previous year multiplied by 1.005. C. Limitation. In no case shall a reference price I wish other people were working as hard to read this as I am. I'm not referring to anyone who is currently here, but most of the people in the building behind me. Limitation. In no case shall a reference price for a covered commodity exceed 113% of the reference price for such a covered commodity listed in subparagraph A. Section 10302, base acres. Section 1112 of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended in subsection D3A by striking 2023 and inserting 2031, and by adding at the end the following additional base acres. In general, as soon as practicable after the date of enactment of this subsection, and notwithstanding this subsection, the Secretary shall provide notice to owners on eligible farms pursuant to paragraph 3 and allocate those eligible farms a total of not more than an additional 30 million base acres in the manner provided in this subsection. An owner of a farm that is eligible to receive an allocation of base acres may elect not to receive that allocation by notifying the Secretary not later than 90 days after the receipt of the notice provided by the Secretary under this paragraph. 2. Content of notice. The notice under paragraph 1 shall include the following: information that the allocation is occurring, information regarding the eligibility of the farm for an allocation of base acres under paragraph 3, information regarding how an owner may appeal a determination of ineligibility for an allocation of base acres under paragraph 3. Through an appeals process established by the Secretary. Eligibility. In general, subject to subparagraph D, effective beginning with the 2026 crop year, a farm is eligible to receive an allocation of base acres if, with respect to the farm, the amount described in subparagraph B exceeds the amount described in subparagraph C. 5-year average sum. The amount described in this subparagraph with respect to a farm is the sum of the 5-year average of the acreage planted on the farm to all covered commodities for harvest, grazing, haying, silage, or other similar purposes for the 2019 through 2023 crop years, and any acreage on the farm that the producers were prevented from planting during the 2019 through 2023 crop years to covered commodities because of drought, flood, or other natural disaster, or other condition beyond the control of the producers as determined by the Secretary, plus the lesser of 15% of the total acres on the farm and the 5-year average of the acreage planted on the farm to eligible non-covered commodities for harvest, grazing, hay, and silage, or similar purposes for the 2019 through 2023 crop years, and any acreage on the farm that the producers were prevented from planting during the 2019 through 2023 crop years to eligible non-covered commodities because of drought, flood, or other natural disaster or other condition beyond the control of the producers as determined by the Secretary. C. Total number of base acres for covered commodities. The amount described in this subparagraph with respect to a farm is the total number of base acres for covered commodities on the farm, excluding unassigned crop base, as in effect on September 30th, 2024. D. Effect of no recent plantings of covered commodities. In the case of the farm for which the amount determined under Clause I, subparagraph B is equal to 0, that farm shall be ineligible to receive an allocation of base acres under this subsection. E. Acreage planted on the farm to eligible non-covered commodities defined. In this paragraph, the term acreage planted on the farm to eligible non-covered commodities means acreage planted on a farm to commodities other than covered commodities, trees, bushes, vines, grass, or pasture, including cropland that was idle or fallow, as determined by the Secretary. 4. Number of base acres. Subject to paragraphs 3 and 8, the number of base acres allocated to an eligible farm shall A. be equal to the difference obtained by subtracting the amount determined under subparagraph C of paragraph 3 from the amount determined under subparagraph B of that paragraph, and B. include unassigned crop base. 5. Allocation of acres. A. Allocation. The Secretary shall allocate the number of base acres under paragraph 4 among those covered commodities planted on the farm at any time during 2019 through 2023 crop years. Allocation formula. The allocation of additional base acres for covered commodities shall be in proportion to the ratio of the 5-year average of the acreage planted on the farm to each covered commodity for harvest, grazing, haying, silage, or other similar purposes for the 2019 through 2023 crop years, and any acreage on the farm that producers were prevented from planting during the 2019 through 2023 crop years that covered commodity because of drought, flood, or other natural disasters or other condition beyond the control of the producers as determined by the Secretary. 2. The 5-year average determined under paragraph 3BI. C. Inclusion of all 5 years in average. For the purpose of determining a 5-year acreage average under subparagraph B for a farm, the Secretary shall not exclude any crop year in which a covered commodity was not planted. D. Treatment of multiple planting or prevented planting. For the purpose of determining under subparagraph B the acreage on a farm that producers planted or were prevented from planting during the 2019 through 2023 crop years to covered commodities, if the acreage that was planted or prevented from being planted was devoted to another covered commodity in the same crop year, other than a covered commodity produced under an established practice of double cropping, the owner may elect the covered commodity to be used for that crop in determining the 5-year average, but may not include both the initial covered commodity and the subsequent covered commodity. All right. Now I'm going to pass the mic to Amy Matsui from the National Women's Law Center. Action.
Thank you, Maria. I'm Amy Matsui with the National Women's Law Center Action Fund. I'm here to lift up all the different ways that this bill is going to rob women, children, families, and communities of health care, nutrition assistance, educational assistance, and investments in our future. E. Limitation. The allocation of additional base acres among covered commodities on a farm under this paragraph may not result in a total number of base acres for the farm in excess of the total numbers of acres on the farm. 6. Reduction by the Secretary. In carrying out this subsection, if the total number of eligible acres allocated to base acres across all farms in the United States under the subsection would exceed 30,000 acres, the Secretary shall apply an across-the-board pro rata reduction to the number of eligible acres to ensure the number of allocated base acres under this subsection is equal to 30 million acres. 7. Payment yield. Beginning with crop year 2026, for the purpose of making price loss coverage payments under Section 1116, the Secretary shall establish payment yields to base acres allocated under this subsection equal to A. The payment yield established on the farm for the applicable covered commodity, and B. If no such payment yield for the applicable covered commodity exists, a payment yield, Romanet 1, equal to the average payment yield for the covered community for the county in which the farm is situated, or Romanet 2, determined pursuant to Section 1113C. 8. Treatment of new owners. In the case of a farm for which the owner on the date of enactment of this subsection was not the owner through the 2019 through 2023 crop years, the Secretary shall use the planting history of the prior owner or owners of that farm for purposes of determining A. Eligibility under paragraph 3, B. Eligible acres under paragraph 4, and C. The allocation of acres under paragraph 5. Section 10303, Producer Election. A. In general, Section 1115 of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended 1 in subsection A in the matter preceding paragraph 1 by striking 2023 and inserting 2031. 2 in subsection C, A in the matter preceding paragraph 1, Romanet 1, by striking crop year or and inserting crop year, and Romanet 2 by inserting or the 2026 crop year after 2019 crop year. B in paragraph 1, Romanet 1, by striking crop year or and inserting crop year, and Romanet 2 by inserting or the 2026 crop year after 2019 crop year, and C in paragraph 2, Romanet 1. In subparagraph A by striking and at the end, Romanet 2. In subparagraph B by striking the period at the end and inserting and Romanet 3. By adding at the end the following: C. The same coverage for each covered commodity on the farm for the 2027 through 2031 crop years, as was applicable for the 2025 crop year, and 3. By adding at the end the following: Romanet 1. Higher of price loss coverage payments and agriculture risk coverage payments. For the 2025 crop year, the Secretary shall, on a covered commodity by covered commodity basis, make the higher of price loss coverage payments under Section 1116 and agriculture risk coverage county coverage payments under Section 1117 to the producers on a farm for the payment acres for each covered commodity on the farm. B. Federal crop insurance supplemental coverage option. Section 508C4C Romanet 4 of the Federal Crop Insurance Act is amended by striking crops for which the producer has elected under Section 1116 of the Agricultural Act of 2014 to receive agricultural risk coverage and acres, and inserting acres. Section 10304, Price Loss Coverage. Section 1116 of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended 1. In subsection A2, in the matter preceding subparagraph A, by striking 2023 and inserting 2031. 2. In subsection C1b, A, in the subparagraph heading by striking 2023 and inserting 2031. And B, in the matter preceding clause Romanet 1, by striking 2023 and inserting 2031. In subsection D, in the matter preceding paragraph 1, by striking 2025 and inserting 2031, and 4, in subsection G, A, by striking subparagraph F of section 11119 and inserting paragraph 19A Romanet 6 of section 1111, and B, by striking 2012 through 2016, each place it appears, and inserting 2017 through 2021. Section 10305, Agriculture Risk Coverage. Section 1117 of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended. 1. In subsection A, in the matter preceding paragraph 1, by striking 2023 and inserting 2031. 2. In subsection C, A, in paragraph 1, by inserting for each of the 2014 through 2024 crop years and 90% of the benchmark revenue for each of the 2025 through 2031 crop years before the period at the end. B, by striking 2023 at each place it appears and inserting 2031, and C, in paragraph 4B in the subparagraph heading, by striking 2023 and inserting 2031. Okay. 3. In subsection D1, by striking subparagraph B and inserting the following. B, Romanet 1. For each of the 2014 through 2024 crop years, 10% of the benchmark revenue for the crop year applicable under subsection C, and Romanet 2. For each of the 2025 through 2031 crop years, 12% of the benchmark revenue for the crop year applicable under subsection C, and 4. In subsections E, G5, and I5, by striking 2023 each place it appears and inserting 2031. Section 10306, Equitable Treatment of Certain Entities. A, in general. Section 1001 of the Food Security Act of 1985 is amended. 1 in subsection A. A, by redesignating paragraph 5 as paragraph 6, and B, by inserting after paragraph 4 the following. 3. Qualified pass-through entity. The term qualified pass-through entity means A, a partnership within the meaning of subchapter K of Chapter 1 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986. 2. An S corporation as defined in Section 1361 of that code. C. A limited liability company that does not affirmatively elect to be treated as a corporation. And D. A joint venture or general partnership. 2. In subsections B and C, by striking except a joint venture or general partnership, each place it appears, and inserting except a qualified pass-through entity. And 3. In subsection D, by striking subtitle B of Title I of the Agricultural Act of 2014, or B, attribution of payments. Section 1001 E3B Romanet 2 of the Food Security Act of 1985 is amended. 1. In the clause heading, by striking joint ventures and general partnerships and inserting qualified pass-through entities. 2. By striking a joint venture or a general partnership and inserting a qualified pass-through entity. 3. By striking joint ventures and general partnerships and inserting qualified pass-through entities. And 4. By striking the joint venture or general partnership and inserting the qualified pass-through entity. C. Persons actively engaged in farming. Section 1001A B2 of the Food Security Act of 1985 is amended. 1. Subparagraphs A and B, by striking a general partnership, a participant in a joint venture, each place it appears, and inserting a qualified pass-through entity. And 2. In subparagraph C, by striking a general partnership, joint venture, or similar entity, and inserting a qualified pass-through entity or a similar entity. D. Joint and several liability. Section 1001BD of the Food Security Act of 1985 is amended by striking partnerships and joint ventures and inserting qualified pass-through entities. C. Exclusion from AGI calculation. Section 1001D, subsection D, of the Food Security Act of 1985 is amended by striking general partnership or joint venture each place it appears. Section 10307, payment limitations. Section 1001 of the Food Security Act of 1985 is amended 1 in subsection B by striking the and inserting subject to subsection Romanet 1, the, and B by striking $125,000 and inserting $155,000. 2 in subsection C, A by striking the and inserting subject to subsection Romanet 1, the, and B by striking $125,000 and inserting $155,000. And 3 by adding at the end the following. Romanet 1 adjustment. For the 2025 crop year and each crop year thereafter, the Secretary shall annually adjust the amounts described in subsections B and C for inflation based on the Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics of the Department of Labor. Section 10308, Adjusted Gross Income Limitation. Section 100D, subsection B, of the Food Security Act of 1985 is amended. 1. In paragraph 1 by striking paragraph 3 and inserting paragraphs 3 and 4. And 2. By adding at the end the following. 4. Exception for certain operations. A. Definitions. In this paragraph, Romanet 1, accepted payment or benefit. The term accepted payment or benefit means 1. A payment or benefit under Subtitle E of Title I of the Agricultural Act of 2014. 2. A payment or benefit under Section 196 of the Federal Agricultural Improvement and Reform Act of 1996. And 3. A payment or benefit described in paragraph 2C received on or after October 1, 2024. Romanet 2. Farming, ranching, or silviculture activities. The term farming, ranching, or silviculture activities includes agritourism, direct-to-consumer marketing of agricultural products, the sale of agricultural equipment owned by the person or legal entity, and other agriculture-related activities as determined by the Secretary. B. Exception. In the case of an accepted payment or benefit, the limitation established by paragraph 1 shall not apply to a person or legal entity during a crop, fiscal, or program year, as appropriate, if greater than or equal to 75% of the average gross income of the person or legal entity derives from farming, ranching, or silviculture activities. Section 10309, Marketing Loans. A. Availability of non-recourse marketing assistance loans for loan commodities. Section 1201B1 of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended by striking 2023 and inserting 2031. B. Loan rates for non-recourse marketing assistance loans. Section 1202 of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended. 1. In subsection B. A. In the subsection heading by striking 2023 and inserting 2025. And B. In the matter preceding paragraph 1 by striking 2023 and inserting 2025. 2. By redesignating subsections C and D as subsections D and E respectively. 3. By inserting after subsection B the following. C. 2026 through 2031 crop years. For purposes of each of the 2026 through 2031 crop years, the loan rate for a marketing assistance loan under Section 1201 for a loan commodity shall be equal to the following. 1 in the case of wheat, $3.72 per bushel. 2 in the case of corn, $2.42 per bushel. 3 in the case of grain sorghum, $2.42 per bushel. 4 in the case of barley, $2.75 per bushel. 5 in the case of oats, $2.20 per bushel. 6 in the case of upland cotton, 55 cents per pound. 7 in the case of extra long staple cotton, $1 per pound. 8 in the case of long grain rice, $7.70 per hundredweight. 9 in the case of medium grain rice, $7.70 per hundredweight. 10 in the case of soybeans, $6.82 per bushel. 11 in the case of other oil seeds, $11.10 per hundredweight for each of the following kinds of oil seeds: A. Sunflower seed, B. Rapeseed, C. Canola, D. Safflower, E. Flaxseed, F. Mustard seed, G. Cramb, H. Sesame seed, I. Other oil seeds designated by the Secretary. In the case of dry peas, $6.87 per hundredweight. 13 in the case of lentils, $14.30 per hundredweight. 14 in the case of small chickpeas, $11 per hundredweight. 15 in the case of large chickpeas, $15.40 per hundredweight. 16 in the case of grated wood, $1.60 per pound. 17 in the case of non-grated wood, 55 cents per pound. 18 in the case of mohair, $5 per pound. 19 in the case of honey, $1.50 per pound. 20 in the case of peanuts, $390 per ton. 4. In subsection D as so redesignated, by striking A11 and B11 and inserting A11, B11, and C11, and 5. In subsection E as so redesignated, in paragraph 1 by striking 25 cents and inserting 30 cents. C. Payment of cotton storage costs. Section 1204G of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended. 1. By striking effective and inserting the following. 1. Crop years 2014 through 2025, effective. 2. In paragraph 1 as so designated, by striking 2023 and inserting 2025. And 3. By adding at the end the following. 2. Payment of cotton storage costs, effective for each of the 2026 through 2031 crop years. The Secretary shall make cotton storage payments for upland cotton and extra long staple cotton available in the same manner as the Secretary provided storage payments for the 2006 crop of upland cotton, except that the payment rate shall be equal to the lesser of A. The submitted storage charge for the current marketing year, and B. In the case of storage in Romanet 1, California or Arizona, a payment rate of $4.90, and Romanet 2, any other state, a payment rate of $3. D. Loan deficiency payments. 1. Continuation. Section 1205A2B of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended by striking 2023 and inserting 2031. 2. Payments in lieu of LDPS. Section 1206 of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended in subsections A and D by striking 2023 each place it appears and inserting 2031. E. Special competitive provisions for extra long staple cotton. Section 1208A of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended in the matter preceding paragraph 1 by striking 2026 and inserting 2032. F. Availability of recourse loans. Section 1209 of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended in subsections A2, B, and C by striking 2023 each place it appears and inserting 2031. Section 10310, repayment of marketing to provide for reconciliation pursuant to Title II of H-Con Res 14, 119th Congress, and ending on July 31st, 2032, if the Secretary determines adjustment is necessary. Romanet 1, to minimize potential loan forfeitures. Romanet 2, to minimize the accumulation of stocks of extra long staple cotton by the federal government. Romanet 3, to ensure that extra long staple cotton produced in the United States can be marketed freely and competitively. And Romanet 4, to ensure an appropriate transition between current crop and forward crop price quotations, except that the Secretary may use forward crop price quotations prior to July 31st of a marketing year only if 1, there are insufficient current crop price quotations, and 2, the forward crop price quotation is the lowest such quotation available. Section 10311, Economic Adjustment Assistance for Textile Mills. Section 1207C of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended by striking paragraph 2 and inserting the following. 2. Value of assistance. The value of the assistance provided under paragraph 1 shall be A, for the period beginning on August 1, 2013, and ending on July 31st, 2025, 3 cents per pound, and B, beginning on August 1st, 2025, 5 cents per pound. Section 10312, Sugar Program Updates. A, loan rate modifications. Section 156 of the Federal Agriculture Improvement and Reform Act of 1996 is amended. 1, in subsection A in paragraph 4 by striking "and" at the end, B in paragraph 5 by striking 2023 crop years and inserting 2024 crop years and C by adding at the end the following. 6, 24 cents per pound for raw cane sugar for each of the 2025 through 2031 crop years. 2 in subsection B, A in paragraph 1 by striking "and" at the end. B in paragraph 2 by striking 2023 crop years and inserting 2024 crop years and C by adding at the end the following. 3, a rate that is equal to 136.55% of the loan rate per pound of raw cane sugar under subsection A6 for each of the 2025 through 2031 crop years, and 3, in subsection Romanet 1 by striking 2023 and inserting 2031. B, adjustments to Commodity Credit Corporation storage rates. Section 167 of the Federal Agriculture Improvement and Reform Act of 1996 is amended. 1, by striking subsection A and inserting the following. A, in general. For the 2025 crop year and each subsequent crop year, the Commodity Credit Corporation shall establish rates for the storage of forfeited sugar in an amount that is not less than 1. In the case of refined sugar, 34 cents per hundredweight per month, and 2, in the case of raw cane sugar, 27 cents per hundredweight per month, and 2, in subsection B, A in the subsection heading by striking subsequent and inserting prior, and B by striking and subsequent and inserting through 2024. C, modernizing beet sugar allotments. 1, sugar estimates. Section 359BA1 of the Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1938 is amended by striking 2023 and inserting 2031. 2, allocation to processors. Section 359CG2 of the Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1938 is amended. A, by striking "in the case" and inserting the following. A, in general, except as provided in subparagraph B in the case, and B, by adding at the end the following. B, exception. If the Secretary makes an upward adjustment under paragraph 1A in adjusting allocations among beet sugar processors, the Secretary shall give priority to beet sugar processors with available sugar. 3, timing of reassignment. Section 359EB2 of the Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1938 is amended. A, by redesignating subparagraphs A through C as clauses Romanet 1 through Romanet 3 respectively and indenting appropriately. B, in the matter preceding clause 1 as so redesignated, by striking "if the Secretary" and inserting the following: A, in general, if the Secretary, and C, by adding at the end the following: B, timing. In carrying out subparagraph A, the Secretary shall, Romanet 1, make an initial determination based on the World Agricultural Supply and Demand estimates approved by the World Agricultural Outlook Board for January that shall be applicable to the crop year for which allotments are required, and Romanet 2, provide for initial reassignment under subparagraph A, Romanet 1, not later than 30 days after the date on which the World Agricultural Supply and Demand estimates described in clause Romanet 1 is released. D, reallocations of tariff rate quota shortfall. Section 359K of the Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1938 is amended by adding at the end the following: C, reallocation. 1, initial reallocation. Subject to paragraph 3, following the establishment of the tariff rate quotas under subsection A for a quota year, the Secretary shall: A, determine which countries do not intend to fulfill their allocation for the quota year, and B, reallocate any forecasted shortfall in the fulfillment of the tariff rate quotas as soon as practicable. 2, subsequent reallocation. Subject to paragraph 3, not later than March 1 of a quota year, the Secretary shall reallocate any additional forecasted shortfall in the fulfillment of the tariff rate quotas for raw cane sugar established under subsection A1 for that quota year. 3, cessation of effectiveness. Paragraphs 1 and 2 shall cease to be in effect if A, the agreement suspending the countervailing duty investigation on sugar from Mexico, signed December 19, 2014, is terminated, and B, no countervailing duty order under subtitle A of Title 7 of the Tariff Act of 1930 is in effect with respect to sugar from Mexico. D, refined sugar. 1, definition of domestic sugar industry. In this subsection, the term domestic sugar industry means domestic: A, sugar beet producers and processors; B, producers and processors of sugar cane; and C, refiners of raw cane sugar. 2, study requested. A, in general, not later than 180 days after the date of enactment of this subsection, the Secretary shall conduct a study on whether the establishment of additional terms and conditions with respect to refined sugar imports is necessary and appropriate. B, elements. In conducting the study under subparagraph A, the Secretary shall examine the following: Romanet 1, the need for 1, defining refined sugar as having a minimum polarization of 99.8 degrees or higher. Thank you.
Do you know if this is turned on? Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Naomi. I'm with the American Association of People with Disabilities. I'm a young person, and I'm a disabled person. Defining refined sugar as having a minimum polarization of 99.8 degrees or higher. 2. Establishing a standard for color or reflectance-based units for refined sugar, such as those utilized by the International Commission of Uniform Methods of Sugar Analysis. 3. Prescribing specifications for packaging type for refined sugar. 4. Prescribing specifications for transportation modes for refined sugar. 5. Requiring evidence that sugar imported as refined sugar will not undergo further refining in the United States. 6. Prescribing appropriate terms and conditions to avoid unlawful sugar imports. And 7. Establishing other definitions, terms and conditions, or other requirements. 2. The potential impact of modifications described in each of sub-clauses 1 through 7 of Clause I on the domestic sugar industry. 3. Whether based on the needs described in Clause I and the impact described in Clause II, the establishment of additional terms and conditions is appropriate. C. Consultation. In conducting the study under subparagraph A, the Secretary shall consult with representatives later than 1 year after the date of enactment of this subsection, the Secretary shall submit to the Committee on Agriculture of the House of Representatives and the Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry of the Senate a report that describes the findings of the study conducted under subparagraph A. 3. Establishment of additional terms and conditions permitted. A. In general, based on the findings in the report submitted under paragraph 2B, and after provided notice to the Committee on Agriculture of the House of Representatives and the Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry of the Senate, the Secretary may issue regulations in accordance with subparagraph B to establish additional terms and conditions with respect to refined sugar imports that are necessary and appropriate. B. Promulgation of regulations. The Secretary may issue regulations under subparagraph A if the regulations do not have an adverse impact on the domestic sugar industry and are consistent with the requirements of this part, Section 156 of the Federal Agriculture Improvement and Reform Act of 1996, 7 U.S.C. 7272, and obligations under international trade agreements that have been approved by Congress. Clarification of tariff rate quota adjustments. Section 359 KB1 of the Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1938, 7 U.S.C. 1359 KKB1 is amended in the matter preceding subparagraph A by striking if there is an and inserting for the sole purpose of responding directly to an. F. Period of effectiveness. Section 3591A of the Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1938, 7 U.S.C. 135911A is amended by striking 2023 and inserting 2031. Section 10313, Dairy Policy Updates. Dairy Margin Coverage Production History. Definition. Section 14018 of the Agricultural Act of 2014, 7 U.S.C. 90518, is amended by striking when the participating dairy operation first registers to participate in dairy margin coverage. Production history of participating dairy operations. Section 1405 of the Agricultural Act of 2014, 7 U.S.C. 9055, is amended by striking subsections A and B and inserting the following. Production history. Except as provided in subsection B, the production history of a dairy operation for dairy margin coverage is equal to the highest annual milk marketings of the participating dairy operation during any one of the 2021, 2022, or 2023 operated calendar years. Election by new dairy operations. In the case of a participating dairy operation that has been in operation for less than a year, the participating dairy operation shall elect one of the following methods for the Secretary to determine the production history of the participating dairy operation. The volume of the actual milk marketings for the months the participating dairy operation has been in operation, extrapolated to a yearly amount. 2. An estimate of the actual milk marketings of the participating dairy operation based on the herd size of the participating dairy operation relative to national rolling herd average data published by the Secretary. Dairy margin coverage payments. Section 1406A1C of the Agricultural Act of 2014, 7 U.S.C. 9056A1C, is amended by striking $5 million each place it appears and inserting $6 million. Premiums for dairy margins. Tier 1. Section 1407B of the Agricultural Act of 2014, 7 U.S.C. 9057B, is amended in the subsection heading by striking $5 million and inserting $6 million, and in paragraph 1 by striking $5 million and inserting $6 million. Tier 2. Section 1407E of the Agricultural Act of 2014, 7 U.S.C. 9057C, is amended in the subsection heading by striking $5 million and inserting $6 million, and in paragraph 1 by striking $5 million and inserting $6 million. Premium discounts. Section 1407G of the Agricultural Act of 2014, 7 U.S.C. 9057G, is amended in paragraph 1 by striking 2019 through 2023 and inserting 2026 through 2031, and by striking January 2019 and inserting January 2026. And in paragraph 2 by striking 2023 each place it appears and inserting 2031. Duration. Section 1409 of the Agricultural Act of 2014, 7 U.S.C. 9059, is amended by striking 2025 and inserting 2031. Section 10314, Implementation. Section 1614C of the Agricultural Act of 2014, 7 U.S.C. 9097C, is amended by adding at the end the following. Further funding. The Secretary shall make available to carry out Subtitle C of Title I of the Act entitled An Act to Provide for Reconciliation pursuant to Title II of H. Con. Res. 14, 119th Congress, and the amendments made by that subtitle, $50 million, to remain available until expended, of which not less than $5 million shall be used to carry out paragraphs 3 and 4 of subsection B. $3 million shall be used for activities described in paragraph 3A. $3 million shall be used for activities described in paragraph 3B. $9 million shall be used to carry out inventory surveys of dairy production costs and product yield information to be reported by manufacturers required to report under Section 273 of the Agricultural Marketing Act of 1946, 7 U.S.C. 1637B, for all products processed in the same facility or facilities, and to publish the results of such surveys biannually, and $1 million shall be used to conduct a study under subsection D of Section 359K of the Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1938, 7 U.S.C. 1359, KK. Subtitle D, Disaster Assistance Programs. Section 10401, Supplemental Agricultural Disaster Assistance. Livestock Indemnity Payments. Section 1501B of the Agricultural Act of 2014, 7 U.S.C. 9081B, is amended by striking paragraph 2 and inserting the following. Payment rates. Losses due to predation. Indemnity payments to an eligible producer on a farm under paragraph 1A shall be made at a rate of 100% of the market value of the affected livestock on the applicable date as determined by the Secretary. Thank you. Thank you so much for ordering that.
Thank you so much for coming.
Hi everyone, my name is Giovanna. I'm a young person. I'm from Network Lobby for Catholic Social Justice, and we believe that the budget is a moral document. D. Applicable date defined. In this paragraph, the term applicable date means with respect to livestock as applicable. The day before the date of death of the livestock, or 2. The day before the date of the event that caused harm to the livestock that resulted in a reduced sale price. And 2, by adding at the end of the following, additional payment for unborn livestock. Part A. In general, in the case of unborn livestock, death losses incurred on or after January 1st, 2024, the Secretary shall make an additional payment to eligible producers on farms that have incurred such losses in excess of the normal mortality due to a condition specified in paragraph 1. Part B. Payment rate. Additional payment in subparagraph A shall be made at a rate, Part 1, determined by the Secretary, and Part 2, less than or equal to 85% of the payment rate established with respect to the lowest weight class of the livestock, as determined by the Secretary, acting through the administrator of the Farm Service Agency. Part C, payment amount. The amount of payment to an eligible producer that has incurred unborn livestock death losses shall be equal to the payment rate determined under subparagraph B, multiplied in the case of livestock described in subparagraph A, B, or F of subsection A 4 by 1, subparagraph D of subsection by 2, subparagraph E of such subsection by 12, and subparagraph G of such subsection by the average number of birthed animals for one gestation cycle, for the species of each such livestock as determined by the Secretary. Part D. Unborn livestock death losses defined. In this paragraph, the term unborn livestock death losses means losses of any livestock described in subparagraph A, B, D, E, F, or G of subsections A, F that were gestating on the date of the death of the livestock. Livestock Forage Disaster Program. Section 1501C3D 2I of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended by striking 1 monthly payment and inserting 2 monthly payments, and 2 by striking county for at least 8 consecutive and inserting the following: county for not less than 4 consecutive weeks during the normal grazing period for the county, as determined by the Secretary, shall be eligible to receive assistance under this paragraph in an amount equal to 1 monthly payment using the monthly payment rate determined under subparagraph B, or 7 of the previous 8 consecutive. Emergency assistance for livestock, honeybees, and farm-raised fish. In general, Section 1501D of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended by adding at the end of the following: assistance for losses due to bird depredation. Part A. Definition of farm-raised fish. In this paragraph, the term farm-raised fish means fish propagated and reared in a controlled freshwater environment. Part B. Payments. Eligible producers of farm-raised fish, including fish grown as food for human consumption, shall be eligible to receive payments under this subsection to aid in the reduction of losses due to piscivorous birds. C. Payment rate. In general, the payment rate for payments under subparagraph B shall be determined by the Secretary, taking into account costs associated with the deterrence of piscivorous birds, the value of lost fish and revenue due to bird depredation, and costs associated with disease loss from bird depredation. Minimum rate. The payment rate for payments under the subparagraph B shall be not less than $600 per acre of farm-raised fish. Part D. Payment amount. The amount of payment under subparagraph B shall be the product obtained by multiplying the applicable payment rate under subparagraph C and 85% of the total number of acres of farm-raised fish farms that the eligible producer has in production for the calendar year. 2. Emergency assistance for honeybees. In determining honeybee colony losses eligible for assistance under Section 1501D of the Agricultural Act of 2014, the Secretary shall utilize a more normal mortality rate of 15%. Tree Assistance Program. Section 1501E of the Agricultural Act of 2014 is amended in paragraph 2B by striking 15% adjusted for normal mortality and inserting normal mortality, and in paragraph AI by striking 15% mortality adjusted for normal mortality and inserting normal mortality, and in subparagraph B by striking 50 and inserting 65, and by striking 15% damage or mortality adjusted for normal tree damage and mortality, and inserting normal tree damage or mortality. Subtitle E, Crop Insurance. Beginning Farmer and Rancher Benefit. In Part A, in general, Section 502B3 of the Federal Crop Insurance Act is amended by striking 5 and inserting 10. Conforming amendment. Section 522C7 of the Federal Crop Insurance Act is amended by striking subparagraph F. Increase in assistance. Section 508E of the Federal Crop Insurance Act is amended by adding at the end of the following: additional support. Part A. In general, in addition to any other provision of this subsection, except paragraph 2A, regarding payment of a portion of premiums, a beginning farmer or rancher shall receive additional premium assistance that is the number of percentage points specified in subparagraph B, greater than the premium assistance that would otherwise be available for the applicable policy, plan of insurance, and coverage level selected by the beginning farmer or rancher. Part B, percentage points adjustments. The percentage points referred to in subparagraph A are the following. For each of the first and second reinsurance years that a beginning farmer or rancher participates as a beginning farmer or rancher in the applicable policy or plan of insurance, 5 percentage points. For the third reinsurance year that a beginning farmer or rancher participates as a beginning farmer or rancher in the applicable policy or plan of insurance, 3 percentage points. For the fourth reinsurance year that a beginning farmer or rancher participates as a beginning farmer or rancher in the applicable policy or plan of insurance, 1 percentage point. Area-based crop insurance coverage and affordability. Coverage level. Section 508C4 of the Federal Crop Insurance Act is amended. In subparagraph A, by striking clause 2 and inserting the following: may be purchased at any level not to exceed, in the case of the individual yield or revenue coverage, 85%. In the case of individual yield or revenue coverage aggregated across multiple commodities, 90%. And in the case of area yield or revenue coverage as determined by the corporation, 95%. And 2 in subparagraph C. In clause 2 by striking 14 and inserting 10. In clause 3I by striking 86 and inserting 90. Premium subsidy. In section 508E2HI of the Federal Crop Insurance Act is amended by striking 65 and inserting 80. Administrative and operating expense adjustments. Section 508K of the Federal Crop Insurance is amended by adding at the end the following. Additional expenses. Part A. In general, beginning with the 2026 reinsurance year and for each reinsurance year thereafter, in addition to the terms and conditions of the standard reinsurance agreement to cover additional expenses for loss adjustment procedures, the corporation shall pay an additional administrative and operating expense subsidy to approved insurance providers for eligible contracts. Part B. Payment amount. In the case of an eligible contract, the payment to an approved insurance provider required under subparagraph A shall be the amount equal to 6% of the net book premium. C. Definitions. In this paragraph, eligible contract means a crop insurance contract entered into by an approved insurance provider in an eligible state and does not include a contract for catastrophic risk protection under subsection B, an area-based plan of insurance or similar plan of insurance as determined by the corporation, or a policy under which an approved insurance provider does not incur loss adjustments expenses as determined by the corporation. Eligible state. The term eligible state means the state in which, with respect to an insurance year, the loss ratio for eligible contracts is greater than 120% of the total net book premium written by all approved insurance providers. Specialty crops. Part A. Minimum reimbursement. Beginning with the 2026 reinsurance year and for each reinsurance year thereafter, the rate of reimbursement for approved insurance providers and agents for administrative and operating expenses with respect to crop insurance contracts covering agricultural commodities described in Section 101 of the Specialty Crops Competitiveness Act of 2004 shall be equal to or greater than the percentage that is the greater of the following: 17% of the premium used to define loss ratio, the percent of the premium used to define loss ratio that is otherwise applicable for the reinsurance year under the terms of the standard reinsurance agreement in effect for the reinsurance year. B. Other contracts. In carrying out subparagraph A, the corporation shall not reduce with respect to any reinsurance year the amount or the rate of reimbursement to approved insurance providers and agents under the standard reinsurance agreement described in Clause 2 of such subparagraph for the administrative and operating expenses with respect to contracts covering agricultural commodities that are not subject to such subparagraph. C. Administration. The requirements of this paragraph and the adjustments made pursuant to this paragraph shall not be considered a negotiation under paragraph 8A. A and O inflation adjustment. In general, subject to subparagraph B, beginning with the 2026 reinsurance year and for each reinsurance year thereafter, the corporation shall increase the total administrative and operating expense reimbursements otherwise required under the standard reinsurance agreement in effect for the reinsurance year in order to account for inflation in a manner consistent with the increases provided with respects to the 2011 through 2015 reinsurance years under the enclosure included in the Risk Management Agency Bulletin numbered MGR 10-007 and dated June 30, 2010. B. Special rule for 2026 reinsurance year. The increase under subparagraph A for the 2026 reinsurance year shall not exceed the percent change for the preceding reinsurance year included in the Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics of the Department of Labor. C. Administration. An increase under subparagraph A shall apply with respect to all contracts covering agricultural commodities that were subject to an increase during the period of the 2011 through 2015 reinsurance year under the enclosure referred in that subparagraph, and shall not be considered a renegotiation under paragraph 8A. Premium support. Section 508E2 of the Federal Crop Insurance Act is amended in subparagraph CI by striking 64 and inserting 69. In subparagraph DI by striking 59 and inserting 64. In subparagraph EI by striking 55 and inserting 60. In subparagraph FI by striking 48 and inserting 51. And in subparagraph GI by striking 38 and inserting 41. Program compliance and integrity. Section 515.12 of the Federal Crop Insurance Act is amended by striking then and all that follows through the period at the end and inserting the following. Then, $4 million for each of the fiscal years 2009 through 2025, and $6 million for fiscal year 2026 and each subsequent fiscal year. Reviews, compliance, and integrity. Section 516B2CI of the Federal Crop Insurance Act is amended in the matter preceding subclause I by striking for each fiscal year and inserting for each fiscal year 2014 through 2025 and $10 million for fiscal years 2026 and each fiscal year thereafter. Poultry Insurance Pilot Program. Section 523 of the Federal Crop Insurance Act is amended by adding at the end of the following: Poultry Insurance Pilot Program. In general, notwithstanding subsection A2, the corporation shall establish a pilot program under which contract poultry growers, including growers of broilers and laying hens, may elect to receive index-based insurance from extreme weather-related risk, resulting in increased utility costs, including the cost of natural gas, propane, electricity, water, and other appropriate costs, as determined by the corporation, associated with poultry production. Stakeholder engagement. The corporation shall engage with poultry industry stakeholders in establishing the pilot program under paragraph 1. 3. Location. The pilot program established under paragraph 1 shall be conducted in a sufficient number of counties to provide a comprehensive evaluation of the feasibility, effectiveness, and demand among producers in the top poultry producing states as determined by the corporation. 4. Approval of policy or plans. Notwithstanding Section 508(1), the Board shall approve a policy or plan of insurance based on the pilot program under paragraph 1, in accordance with Section 508H and not later than 2 years after the date of enactment of this subsection. Subtitle F, Additional Investments in Rural America. Conservation. In general, Section 1241A of the Food Security Act of 1985 is amended in paragraph 2 by striking subparagraphs A through F and inserting the following. A. $625 million for fiscal year 2026, $650 million for fiscal year 2027, $675 million for fiscal year 2028, $700 million for fiscal year 2029, $700 million for fiscal year 2030, and $700 million for fiscal year 2031. And in paragraph 3, in subparagraph A, by striking clauses 1 through 4 and inserting the following: $2,655 million for fiscal year 2026, $2,855 million for fiscal year 2027, $3,255 million for fiscal year 2028, $3,255 million for fiscal year 2029, $3,255 million for fiscal year 2030, and $3,255 million for fiscal year 2031. And in subparagraph B, by striking clauses 1 through 5 and inserting the following: $1,300 million for fiscal year 2026, $1,325 million for fiscal year 2027, $1,350 million for fiscal year 2028, $1,375 million for fiscal year 2030, $1,375 million for $375 million for fiscal year 2031. Regional Conservation Partnership